I'd like to welcome back to stage Michael Spayd and Lyssa Adkins. They're going to be doing the opening keynote today. These guys have made a significant impact on the Agile world, and it's an absolute pleasure to have them here today.
Good morning. Hi. We're like those two dancers, but without the lights.
Maybe we can work on that, actually.
That'd be fun.
by the end, you know, we're starting and ending this thing, so if you don't like us, you're in trouble.
Or if you don't like us, give us another chance.
Yeah, that'd be another way to.
Good. So welcome to your conference. We're so glad to be here. So pleased to have been invited. It feels like a real honor.
Yeah, very much. Thank you for the honor of being able to open and close your conference. We hope that we can serve you.
Yeah.
We want to. We weren't able to manage to hit all three themes of the conference, but we got two of them. 2
out of 3 ain't bad, right? There's a song like that.
Lyssa was singing in here before. If you, we're going to talk about enterprise level work, and we're going to talk about transformation.
Mm-hmm. And transformation is really our personal missions in the world and the mission of our organization, Agile Coaching Institute. We build transformation leaders. That's what we do. From the Scrum Master of one team as a transformation leader up to the CEO of an organization. Because everyone all along the way has a part in this transformation that's taking place.
And the approach that we've taken is to bring in different disciplines from our knowledge of coaching, of facilitation, of professional coaching, not Agile coaching, as well as Agile Enterprise transformations, and to bring that into transformation leaders like yourselves.
And today you're really lucky because we've never presented this much information from Michael's forthcoming book, which is called Coaching the Agile Enterprise. So you down here in this part of the world, down below the world, sneak peek of Coaching the Agile Enterprise.
We've done a lot of this material, but not all of it. So you're going to get a little deep dive. And I hope you had your coffee this morning, because we're going to move through quite a bit of material.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah. And it'll help you start to see through new eyes. And so that's one of the things we want for you today, is to start to see through new eyes, a new holistic, larger picture of your organization in total and how your organization affects your teams, if that's your focus.
As we travel around the world, we talk to a lot of coaches and scrum masters and iteration managers and product owners.
And vice presidents and so on and so on.
And they have really big aspirations. They've got the Agile bug, they've got the Agile virus, and they want it everywhere in their organization.
Yeah, they want what happens on a team, that feeling of being in it together, that sense of camaraderie and collaboration, those great products, those astonishing products that come out. They want that to be infused through the whole organization. They want Agile to be a force for organizational continuous improvement.
They want that fixed mindset that they bump up against in their organizations that Edwin was talking about to give way to the growth mindset.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you some context for how that can happen, or when it's not quite ready to happen yet.
So for those of you who have that aspiration, what we're going to be talking about is directly aimed at you. And for those of you who don't necessarily have an enterprise Agile aspiration, that's cool. That's fine. What we're talking about today might help you understand the environment around your teams in a little more complete way, more holistic manner.
So when we think about an organization, we think about all its organizational structure and who reports to who and who measures who.
Like all this stuff that we have in organizations, right?
We've got all kinds of complicated processes. Maybe they don't go as smoothly or as easily as we'd like them to.
And we've got relationships that get the work done, and sometimes it's even like junior high school. You know, like who likes who goes to lunch together. The social network is actually what gets the work done, and so that turned out to be very important. And, you know, maybe not as mature as we'd like it to be sometimes.
We've got leaders who haven't quite caught the Agile bug yet, maybe don't seem to get it from our point of view.
The Agile coaches we coach say, if our leaders would just get it. Do you say that?
What we want is an organizational structure that's more adaptive, that changes according to the business needs or the people needs.
And we want leaders that are wise and facilitative in nature versus being strict and dictatorial in nature, don't we?
We want our processes to be leaned out and to have more of an agile culture.
Yeah.
How can that happen? Well, why hasn't it happened, actually, is the question. Because Agile is at least 14 years old, and I've been in it that whole time, and I've seen this aspiration for a long time, and it hasn't happened yet in almost all the companies that I know about.
And so this survey that comes out every year is done by Version 1, and it surveys a bunch of Agilists all over the world, and for about the last decade running, it has told us that the ceiling to agility in organizations is the same problem, which is this.
The inability to change organizational culture, followed closely by a general resistance to change. Now, these other things tend to change over time because different issues emerge and different things happen, but these two issues are always the top issues for 7 or 8 years in a row. And they have nothing to do with Agile, do they? They have to do with people and organizations and how change works.
Anyone getting depressed yet?
Uh-oh.
Just checking on you.
So we're gonna talk about what does an organization need to have agility at an organizational level. We think there's two really big components. One is business agility. So business agility is things like the ability to have products that customers actually want, that customers work on, that they give you feedback about.
Yeah, the ability for products to flow smoothly through your organization, so your organization can always be producing the highest business value product, and it moves to your customers lickety-split right away, and then the next highest business value one right out to customers, just like this, just smooth flow.
And that our structures and our processes facilitate that happening, that flow happening, rather than fight it.
So that's one side, business agility. The other thing we think you need is human systems agility. Quite a different thing.
When we came down to the Yao conference, how many people have been to the Yao conference?
Over in Australia. Just a couple.
So if you don't know about the Yao conference, it is full of geeks. Okay?
Yes. Technology geeks in particular. We were like the weird uncles at the Christmas dinner table.
We were like, why did they invite us? Because they don't get what we're talking about. Until we realized we're geeks too, but we're human system geeks. We're human technology geeks. We get all these things about how humans work and human systems work, but not so much the technology side.
So both are important, right? We have to have the processes that support creating great products, and we have to have the relationships and the human evolution in the people that support that, because the relationships are what gets the work done.
Because if I'm a leader and I'm threatened by having an ambiguous situation and I want a black and white answer, does that work very well in an Agile culture?
And kind of not in this complex world in general. It doesn't work so well anymore.
So we need some growth and evolution happening on the human system side as well as on the business side.
So this is a big map we're going to be exploring.
So it's going to take us a little while to unpack it, so we hope you'll be patient with that.
We hope you'll love it, actually, more than be patient. Be looking for ways that this explains things to you in your current situation that you're just right now overwhelmed by or befuddled by. Be looking for that.
And actually, what we want for you is to be able to use this map. This is really a meta map. It's a map of maps or of systems, of frameworks. And we want you to be able to use it for the rest of the conference to see where does this presentation that I'm talking or seeing, where does it fit in and when would it be appropriate to use these techniques in what situations?
Because almost everything is good until it's not. Right? Almost everything works for a while and by itself is usually not sufficient to enact the kind of change we're wanting in Agile organizations.
So this is a very brief summary of the development of human beings and of organizational cultures over time. This is called a stage hierarchical model, meaning that people start down below and they move up if they move up through development. So just like a child moves up from development of they don't understand that you can take different people's perspectives. A young child doesn't even have a sense of self to see the difference between themselves and the world. But that's a developmental limitation that eventually we create an individualized sense of self. So it's that kind of a model, but really more in the adult realm.
Yeah, and the really good news is that adults develop, or can. Some do not continue development because their life circumstances don't make them develop, but some do.
So see if you can recognize your organization or yourself or people that you know in this next part. So this conformist, role-driven kind of meme, if you will, is about black and white answers.
Absolute truth.
The world is black and white. We can know the truth. The social group that we belong to, the authorities that we have, know the truth, and that we're just implementing that. We're doing our duty. We're paying attention to our social role. If we do our social role right, we'll get rewarded.
Yeah, and think in organizations, it's very role-bound. If I do what the authority, in which case my boss or my boss's boss, if I do what they want me to do and I pay my dues, I'm going to get rewarded. That's the mindset here.
So this is reminiscent of the traditional military organization. The traditional government may not be true in all military, all governments today, but it's the traditional thing that we think of is a strict hierarchy, a bureaucracy.
And we still have vestiges of this still around in our modern corporations. You can probably think about your own organization and see traces of this. That's pretty normal.
So when and if we develop out of that, we move into this achievement or results-oriented. We also color code it orange to make it easy to remember. The colors don't have any real meaning. And here we get really pragmatic. And we're really focused on having goals. We have individual goals for ourselves, and our organization has goals. And we hope to align those two things.
And there's a sense of achieving. I want more, more, more. I have this achievement, good. What's the next achievement? Let's go. I have that one, good. What's the next one? Let's go. Success, achievement, material wealth is indicative of this.
That's where the idea of a career ladder and climbing the career ladder, and there's a sense of competition. There's a sense of innovation, because the best ideas tend to win. It's where organizations started to develop the idea of meritocracy and accountability.
So many for-profit organizations, especially traded on stock exchanges, have a center of gravity around this orange achievement results-oriented culture.
So what drives us to the next level, if we go to the next level, is dissatisfaction with that. We get tired of the rat race, as we say. We get tired of climbing the corporate ladder. We get tired of materialistic-oriented achievements, and we want something deep.
And we
deeper.
also see that the world is really complex around us, and that we can't just take an analytical mindset to solve things or to figure out what to do. We have to hear from lots of different people, get lots of different perspectives, even when those perspectives, especially when those perspectives don't match our own. Right? We want to hear them, we want to bring them, and we want to use them to surf the complexity of the world around us.
We call this pluralistic or relationship-driven, or green, and we value diversity in this kind of thinking mindset. And we want to come to consensus for our decision making. We don't want a hierarchy to make decisions. We want to make them by consensus as a team.
We want people to love the answers we come up with, ourselves first and foremost.
And for some people, this gives way because this is many nonprofit organizations are organized in this value system. And there's a certain kind of inefficiency, though, a lot of times, because we've lost focus on results, and there's something that we are missing.
Yeah. So the relationship maybe swung a little too far to, the pendulum swung a little too far to relationship. Now we're going to come back, get a more systemic view, right in the middle of relationship and results for Teal. So
you might recognize or be familiar with some of the ideas here, but you don't know many people that have really fully developed to this level, because it's a very cutting edge evolutionary piece. There's almost no organizations. There are some. They're documented in this book, Reinventing Organizations, by a man named Frederick Laloux. And I would highly suggest reading that. It's a really illuminating, and it covers this system quite well. So in Teal, we're driven now not by results, but by purpose.
The results come as a byproduct of us focusing on and moving toward our purpose and making sure our purpose is aligned in a systemic way, like even a planetary way, guys. Teal thinkers are thinking planetary, systemic.
In orange, we want to constantly achieve greater growth. We want to constantly make more money. And that's good in a certain sense. In teal, we want to create more impact. And so we need money in order to create impact, but that's not the primary driver necessarily. It's more about how can we shift or change the world in some way while making money.
Now, lest you think amber is awful, we want to let you know it was a huge advance. It was a huge societal advance over what came before amber, which is called red. Now, in red, we're not talking about, getting stabbed in the back in a political kind of way as people move up the ladder. We're talking about getting stabbed in the back literally. That's how power moves in a red culture.
So organizations, before they became organized in an amber way, were organized in a red way, and now the only vestiges of that are organizations that aren't legal.
Like drug mafia, drug gangs, that sort of thing.
And where the leader really does maintain power directly through fear and through the threat of harm or death.
Good. So we're laying this groundwork for you to see what goes on in the world. And now we're going to do the numbers to show you how many people are at each. What do you say?
I accidentally flashed up the slide, but so let's set it up, though. All right.
Okay, hang on.
So some of you might have seen that. Just disregard that.
Yeah. So now you've learned that model. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you the news of how many people are at each of those altitudes. We're going to do the numbers.
Because perhaps you're seeing that where we're going in the Agile community is really up in this kind of space. Does that make sense?
That's where our ideas come from. Agile itself is a manifestation of those sorts of organizational principles. Right?
So research has found that people about 60% of people are primarily centered in one of these, and the other 40% are transitioning between this one and this one, or this one and this one, or this one and this one. You don't skip stages. That's not possible. There's a huge body of research that validates that. You move up one at a time, basically, and it takes a long time to do that.
Are we going to do the numbers now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I got to set it up properly.
I know, it was perfect.
So here's the bad news.
Oh, here's the second piece of bad news. There's a couple pieces of bad news in here.
Oh, did we tell them that? I don't think we did.
There's some bad news. Well, there's some news we don't want, but I would rather you know it and be realistic about what's possible than highly aspirational and get your head knocked against the wall all the time.
Now, we don't know New Zealand well enough to know where the center of gravity of your country is, I think. That's kind of an ongoing theory for us. Yeah. The United States is clearly centered in orange.
Yes.
Scandinavia is clearly centered in green. Probably most of Western Europe is orange-green between those two.
It feels to me, I've toured in New Zealand a couple of times. I've probably spent about 6 weeks here total. Not a lot of time, but more than typical tourist. And it feels to me like this is orange moving to green, like it's a lot of green aspiration, but a lot of orange structures. You find out for yourself what you think.
Okay, so that's this sense. If you were, now we're gonna map it to Agile.
Yeah.
So let's look at how this plays out. These different altitudes of development play out in an Agile sense. Okay, so I've named these at amber. They go sort of in reverse order this time, not from the bottom. So in amber, it's what I call tradition-driven. And we actually, it's really hard. If you really truly have an amber organization and amber leaders, you're not going to probably be able to do Agile, quite frankly.
You're going to be able to do Kanban, some kind of like very instrumental sense of Kanban, not the kind of Kanban that's going to change the whole organization, but the kind of Kanban that will help a part of an organization be more efficient. That's a good match. Because
here people are actually threatened by you saying that their role doesn't matter or that their role is not the right one.
Yeah, and here's self-organization. Oh my gosh, you're going to get thrown out for talking about self-organization. What do you mean? Trust those people to organize themselves? Are you crazy? People won't say that to your face, but they'll be thinking it.
If you look at the alignment to the Agile Manifesto, you'll notice that those are all reversed.
It's actually kind of backwards. So in this culture, it really does make sense to people who are at this altitude that comprehensive documentation is more important than working software. If an expert created this process, If we have to show later what our work was to get here, then of course we need to create comprehensive documentation. How in the world else are we going to support this product later?
All right, so let's move on to orange, or results-driven. So here, we're really interested in getting results, getting things faster, getting things done more cheaply. And so that part of Agile that does that, because it does, is going to really resonate with an orange culture or an orange leader. It's going to make a lot of sense to them. They're going to get that.
Yeah, and the alignment with the manifesto. Yeah, baby, give me working software, because people are buying that. People are not buying comprehensive documentation, so that's okay. You don't have to do that. But give me working software.
But if you'll know you're in an orange culture if you really press them on contract negotiation over customer, or customer collaboration over contract negotiation. They'll say, well, you know, that sounds good. We like to have our customers as partners, but hey, we're running a business here.
At the end of the day, really, we need our contracts. We need our penalties. No. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So at
So are you
green,
starting? Hang on. Let's just check on that. Are you starting to see what's going on with your Agile implementation? Anyone starting to see it? Okay, cool. We're going to keep letting you see it in different ways.
So at green, we really do value focusing on people and values, and we really do want empowerment because that's what we believe. We actually want a flatter organization. We want a more consensus-based. We don't like hierarchical leadership.
We actually
so much.
believe in emergence and self-organization. We believe in it. We think that's actually the best way to get good ideas.
And so the mapping to the manifesto, these two are in the way that they are written in the manifesto. That makes sense that we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
Absolutely.
Because that's how green thinks.
Totally consistent. So you can start to see that what many of us aspire to on our Agile teams, and even in our Agile organizations, if our aspirations go that far, it starts to come online here at Green in a big way.
So finally up at teal, I call this adaptive Agile, and this is really full-blown Agile. This is where all the ideas in Agile make sense. It's the kind of thinking, I think, that drove the writing of the manifesto in the first place. And it's where we really, especially responding to change over following a plan, but the whole manifesto really aligns. But we really think in a systemic, adaptive kind of a way. But remember, not, less than 10% of people are actually fully there. So it's more of an aspiration that we have rather than a reality, and that probably fits your experience. How many people we have a higher aspiration than we have a reality. How many people is that true for? Okay, so good, half of you at least.
Yeah, good. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to imagine that those 4 quadrants in that model are on the floor, and that those rings are coming up from amber to orange to green to teal like this, because they're called altitudes. So literally, as a human being and as a whole organization of human beings develop their complexity from here to here, they can literally see more. They can get a more holistic view. Their interventions can be more specifically keyed to what's happening in a wider scope. Down here, all you can see is just what's immediately around you.
So it's just like with a human being, with a baby, for instance. A baby has a lower level of development and can't do all kinds of things. A 2-year-old couldn't get across town by themselves. No matter how much you encouraged them or gave them experience, they just couldn't do that. But you don't think of them as an inferior person, because that's true. You consider that they're at that level of development, and that's where they are.
So start applying that to your organizations and to the people you encounter. So instead of being upset with them that they're not where you are, start to see them as, well, okay, what's their level of development? And just like that 2-year-old who can't get across town by themselves, they're not deficient. They're just where they are. They're just where they are.
So what changes as we go up from amber to orange to green to teal is not intelligence. That's the same. It's not most personality characteristics. It's mainly the level of complexity that we're able to deal with in the world.
Mental complexity.
Okay, so let's look at these, back here. You'll notice that we have 4 quadrants here, and we're going to talk about those next. So they basically correspond. This is the integral model. We didn't invent that. I told you that we bring things in from the rest of the world. You can Google integral model, integral theory, integral operating system, founded by a man named Ken Wilber. And there's a big movement around the world that does integral in all everything from medicine to philosophy to religion, spiritual practices to technology and business. And the fundamental distinction here is really basic to us just grammatically. Almost all languages have a distinction between first person, second person, and third person, right? I, we, and it. And this matches that. So this I perspective is what we call the psychological window, where that's the part of ourselves that only we have access to. Our thoughts, our feelings, our reflections.
The way our mind works, how much complexity it can handle, how many different ideas, even competing ideas it can handle at once.
The behavioral window is what we can see from the outside, both about a person, but also about a team, let's say their practices or what they do. The systems window is about the social structures that emerge, like the organization structure, those kind of things that we can physically see that have to do with the collective and how things develop.
Business processes that are big in your organization that help or hinder.
And this one is the cultural window. So let's look at different kinds of methods that are prioritized or privileged by each of these perspectives. In other words, the different kinds of, part of what Wilber was trying to do was to say, people have all these different ways of thinking about the world. How can we rationalize them together? How can any of them that have persisted over time be completely wrong? Maybe there's some truth in all of them. And that's the perspective that we're coming from here.
Now start to look for your own personal point of view. Typically, for most of us human beings, we look through one of these 4 quadrants. We call them windows. We look through one of these 4 windows first. It's our perspective. It's our primary perspective. It's also our primary bias. So start looking for that.
So in the I perspective, we would be doing introspection or meditation, perhaps. Or we'd be using personality tests to understand ourselves or other people.
We'd be learning professional coaching skills so we could ask questions and fully listen to people as they answer so that they could explore their own internal I experience and get some epiphanies about what's going on for them.
So then contrast that, see how different this is on the right-hand side. In the practices behavior it perspective, we think about the empirical stuff. We think about measuring things. We think about things that we could go into a team and not have to ask people questions or find out what's going on inside.
We can just see them from the exterior.
We just watch.
Did they stand up today? How long was it? Did each person get to talk? Is it clear how they're moving toward the sprint goal? Really specific, measurable stuff like this that you can just see from the outside.
In the its perspective, we do things like systems thinking. Systems thinking has to do with watching how things move over time, and that cause and effect are sometimes separated in time. Sometimes we have something that we do here that breaks something over here that we don't know about for months. It has an effect that way. So it's a different kind of value stream mapping is something that probably some of you know about. Here we have things like mental models. This is the intersubjective side it's talked about. Beliefs that we have together.
Visions that we share. Ways of being as we're working together on teams that we share and can articulate together.
So hopefully you're starting to see how these are different from each other. So I want to contrast both of these. This perspective, now we're trying to apply it directly to Agile. This is where people talk about being Agile. My friend Ahmed Sidki, Dr. Agile, is big on mindset. True? And he's about being Agile. Anybody make that distinction? Being Agile as opposed to doing it? That's an I perspective, as opposed to doing Agile, as opposed to the behaviors we engage in. And you can see how neither one of those are the right answer. Neither one of those are the total answer. They're both important. We could, because if we go through the motions of doing the practices, but we don't have a certain joy in our heart or a certain enthusiasm, we're probably missing something. But by the same token, we think it's all great that we're agile, but we actually don't write tests. We don't check in code. That rings hollow somehow.
Something doesn't add up here. So these are two windows to look at basically the same thing, an individual, a team, or a whole organization, and just two different ways of getting access to what's going on.
So hopefully you're seeing this quality of how this is a meta map, how it, for instance, the Scaled Agile Framework SAFE is in this quadrant, in this ITS perspective.
So these are just approaches that help us grapple with the big ITS world in our organizations. How do we make sense of the processes and structures that are here? And so if you think this way through the ITS quadrant, you're going to be loving things like theory of constraints, finding the bottleneck, things like SAFE or other scaling methods are going to make a lot of sense to you. You're going to say, yeah, buddy, let's go. Let's put those in.
If we extend it a little bit beyond Agile, we might look into something called beyond budgeting. Anybody heard of beyond budgeting? Beyond budgeting, if you read it, if you've got any issues with your budgeting process and your, how your finance works in your organization, read the Beyond Budgeting Manifesto. It reads like it was written by Agilists. It was not. It was written by people that are on the cutting edge of, how to do budgeting. But it's a really cool, advanced.
And I'm imagining that diagram we had before of green and teal.
Yes.
Beyond budgeting comes from that same thinking, that green and teal thinking that Agile came from. So they're completely consistent with one another.
Very much.
Yeah.
Over here we have things like Peter Senge talked about, that a learning organization examines their mental models together. Because our mental models that we have about reality tend to limit us. And if we examine them together, we can uplift, we can eradicate our own limitations.
So those are the 4 quadrants. And we now want to give you the names for each of these 4 quadrants for more of the agile transformation, the enterprise agile scope.
So we've done a lot of background just to get here. This is the Integral Agile Transformation Framework that I articulate in my book that I'm still writing. By the way, as a side note, if anybody approaches you about writing a book, just run. Okay. It's one of the worst things you can possibly do. From my personal, your results may vary. So in this quadrant, what we're focused on in an enterprise transformation is leadership. What's the level of leadership maturity, and what's the level of engagement of employees? Because engagement is a really key thing. Over in this quadrant, we're talking about our competencies around product development, around technical practices, around collaborative skills. Do we have the competencies to do collaboration? Even. Here we're talking about the structure of the organization and the architecture of it, how the different systems work together and whether they create flow or not. And here we're talking about the culture of the organization and the relationships between people. So hopefully you can see how this maps. And then within that we've got these levels, these altitudes, because evolution happens from the perspective of each quadrant. So we develop over time within each quadrant in a different way and differentially. So they don't all develop at the same pace.
And you might start to be seeing for your own team or your own organization how one quadrant might be a little more evolved than the other. That's exactly what we want you to start doing at this point, is start thinking about how you would apply this back to your own situation. Yeah. Now we want to give you a little bit more about specific developmental lines in each of these quadrants. Oh, thank you. That's sweet.
So,
you didn't drink out of this one, did you?
No, I didn't.
He has a cold.
Don't drink after me.
We've been here too long. We've both gotten colds while we were here.
So in the leadership and engagement quadrant, the relevant developmental dimension that we would track is mental complexity. So for instance, down in the amber range, things are black and white, like we said. In the middle range, I'm starting to not just take my cues from what my society or profession or organization believes, and I believe those same things, but I'm starting to differentiate a new sense of self, and I'm starting to, we say that a person becomes their own person. There's a sign of maturity in becoming your own person, making your own value choices apart from what other people think. And at some even further level of mental complexity development, I start to even question myself. I don't believe that my own value system is necessarily the only one. That there could be vast perspectives, and I could have all kinds of blockages in my own ability to perceive reality that need to be challenged.
One of our favorite bumper stickers that articulates this level beautifully is, "Don't believe everything you think."
If we go over to the competencies, products, and technologies, and there's 3 of them here. One of them is about technical practices. If we, down in the more amber range, we have a really strict division of functions. So testers don't, wait till the end to get the stuff from developers. And we want a separation of roles there because that's the way that kind of mindset thinks. And we don't, use the Agile technical practices.
Now that kind of mindset was in me quite hard. And when I started Agile, actually, because I came from a project management background, and I said things like, well, wait, hang on. So if testers and developers are going to work together up front, won't developers know the answer up front? So do you see how that was a strange thought to my mind? Now, later, as I've been doing Agile for a long time, I'm like, well, of course we want developers to know the answer up front. It's not a secret to anyone. It's hard enough. Why make it harder on people? Right? So, but that's how that mindset grows. And that's how the technical practices related to that mindset can grow and develop throughout the different altitudes.
If you know James Shore and Diana Larson's Agile Fluency model, the higher end of technical practices adaptability corresponds to Agile Fluency Level 2. The next one, product development practices, is our product development really old-fashioned, where we pushed it to, we decided, like Henry Ford, you can have any color car you want as long as it's black. That was a pretty, structured, one answer kind of approach. It wasn't like the mass customization that we have now. So we've grown into where we have more and more flexibility. We have more and more of the customer involved. Like lean startup, we have the customer involved all the time in our product development practices. We don't hold them at arm's length anymore. We bring them in. But it depends on what level of development we're at, whether that even makes sense to us or not.
Yeah. Then there are emotional intelligence and relationship skills. In Agile, we have the aspiration to be collaborative everywhere, but it doesn't necessarily mean that an organization has the skills to do that. In a more amber altitude, it's going to be much more about my role. I'm going to do my piece. I'm going to hand it off to you, so I don't have to learn collaboration skills. Right? And as we go further, then it becomes more important. So moving into the organizational architecture and environment place, we have what I call structural adaptability, which means can the structure flex to meet the needs of both the market and of the people in it. And in the amber range, in the lower altitude range, we're very rigid. We have a rigid bureaucracy, and things go up and things go down the other side, and they create strong handoffs, right? In the more teal end of the range, things become more ad hoc. Structures move according to the people's needs in the organization and what they're trying to accomplish, according to their individual leadership, and also according to what the market needs. And so we have less attachment. But that's a greater level of complexity, because it's easier to deal with just black and white, right? It's simpler to do that. And the other one here is flow ability. How much does valuable business results, products, business value, how much does that flow through the organization smoothly or not so smoothly? So in an amber elevation, it's going to be less smooth, right? More handoffs are to be expected there. And then as we get into a teal organization, like Michael was talking about, where structures morph and change, it can be quite smooth.
In the culture section, we have this first one is cultural complexity, and that basically corresponds to this amber, orange, green, and teal. That's a measure of complexity. The idea of cultural congruence then is a little bit different idea. It has to do with if we are indeed an orange organization, do all our practices match that orange, or do we have hints of green over here and some amber over here? And the more we have fragmentation in that way, the research says that the more we tend to be not very effective. That actually there's a usefulness about having a consistency to your culture, not being all over the place. Okay, so That was a lot of stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we want to show you what might be possible for your organization. And we want to first have you tap into your own motivation for why it is that you want Agile to move beyond the team level out into the organization. And start paying attention to what is it that drives you to want that. And can you be happy enacting what's possible for your organization at its current altitude? Or do you need to go somewhere else?
So the idea here is what's really possible in your organization. So that's going to require that you get a theory in your mind going of in your department or your organization, your enterprise, whatever level is relevant to you. Are they closer to amber orange? How many people feel like theirs is amber orange? Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So what an Agile enterprise looks like in an amber orange organization is not going to be as cool in some sense, quote unquote, as it would be in a green organization, because that's just not possible. But here's what I believe is possible from each of these points of view if your organization is truly in the amber orange range. You could really have iterative development. And the difference between not having iterative development and having iterative development is really significant.
Yeah.
Don't underplay that. That's really a useful change to make.
Yeah.
And if we start to value customer feedback, not we're going to have customers come in and we're going to pivot and all this kind of stuff. Forget about that. How about if we just even hear from the customer a little bit? That would be better than not.
So pay attention to whether you can set your sights on these things and help your Amber organization be more healthy here and take the steps it can take, not the big moon leaps you might want it to do, but the steps that are in front of it that are accessible.
In this kind of organization, from an organization structure point of view, if you can have an organization structure that focuses on projects more than functions, that's a really good thing. To forget about having holacracy or some kind of newfangled governance structure, that's not happening. That is too far of a leap. But if you could just start focusing on projects instead of just functions, that would be good. If you could start moving in that direction.
And you might be able to sneak in the idea of focusing on products more than projects. Because remember, at this elevation, things that sell, things that have results in the marketplace are going to be king.
If my power and my job title changes into an outcomes orientation, that would be a good thing. That's the developmental edge that's going on in amber orange, is moving to outcomes orientation. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And down in organizational culture, valuing results is a whole lot better than doing my job and going home at the end of the day no matter what happens, right? Having a sense of being in it together and allegiance to our function, to some certain kind of mastery, actually, of our own craft.
All right. How many people feel they have an orange, just
like really
pure orange
solidly
kind of
orange.
a group? You guys? The orange people?
Are the orange?
I don't know.
I've been looking at you guys this whole time going, I wonder if they're happy they've got orange shirts on today.
Yeah, sorry. We should have warned you.
This was not set up. We didn't know they were coming with orange shirts. They didn't know we were going to talk about colors today.
So in an orange organization, from a process point of view, you could really think about limiting WIP to drive efficiency.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it to have some really complex, newfangled process system, but you could do it from an efficiency point of view because orange gets efficiency.
Things that you can measure and put in front of someone's face and say, here, we can get better results if we do these things. Yeah, baby. Orange is going to like that. Anything subjective, try to make it look objective.
Right. And technical practices, well, if that increases my resume, then I'm going to want to know about that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm not going to do it because I value really collaborating with other people necessarily. I got to keep this stuff to myself, and I got to worry about my own performance review. That's an orange mentality. Don't expect them to share based on team values. Expect them to do technical practices because that's good for. It's better to be an Agile developer than not.
Yeah. All righty. Down here in organizational structure. Okay, now we start getting into value stream. Now we start looking across the enterprise a little bit. That's pretty cool. That's a big advancement.
But it's going to be crude because in Orange, you do organization structure based on the power of different corporate officers. That's why people organize how people organize in Orange is through power base of various people. That's why you see crazy things come out in reorgs, because they're based not on what makes sense, but based on who's negotiated what power.
Yeah, right. Okay.
In the leadership kind of area, we're going to be really drawn to new ideas and to progressing the most in our career. We're going to be very oriented towards certifications, toward anything that helps build our resume, that makes us more marketable.
So we are starting to get from a fixed mindset into much more of a growth mindset here. That we do believe we are capable of developing other skills over our lifetime, and being known for a skill, having some sort of mastery because it helps us in our career, that's completely consistent.
Culturally, we're going to value innovation and meritocracy. And so if our innovation is not very strong, that's the place to go culturally in an Orange organization, not to an Agile values, empowerment, blah, blah, blah. But let's get more innovative, because that's the language that Orange understands, is innovation. And some organizations are not very good at that, even if they're Orange, but they understand from a values point of view how important that is. That's their language.
All right, so let's check it out. How many of you guys think you have orange moving to green, or some kind of mixture of orange and green as the primary altitudes?
All righty.
Okay, cool.
So you can more fully practice Scrum and get collaboration with business and stakeholders. That's starting to make sense to that green meme going on.
And collaboration, not just instrumentally to get more efficient, but collaboration to actually get better ideas. Whoa, yeah, now we're talking. Now we're starting to get much more consistent with Agile, right?
And your matrix structure, which is an Orange type of an idea, is going to be balanced with value streams, because value streams directly organize us around customer interests, right? Products, because a value stream is what delivers value to a customer. So that's going to start to make sense in an Orange moving to green organization, is to do that.
Yeah. All right, so leadership and engagement, emotional intelligence starts to come online in a big way here. Orange moving to green. Realizing that, hey, actually, I have to bring all these people along with me. I just can't bluster my way through my career.
And I'm really starting to value the relationship aspects of Agile, because there's a lot of greenish relationship aspects to Agile, and I'm starting to value not just the results of it, but also those things.
Yeah. So that's the orange-green enterprise. Who feels like, maybe my enterprise is more like completely green?
Anybody?
Oh, see, there goes our theory about New Zealand just got totally blown.
I guess so. or they're maybe more
shy.
Modest.
They're like, maybe we're green, we're modest, these guys in the front are going, yeah, we're more modest. Awesome.
So check out if you've got this stuff going on, and that might cause you to change your diagnosis. So you can really do self-organized Scrum here, because that is starting to make sense. And you can really have a flattening organizational structure. That's going to start to make sense. And you can optimize them around the alignment to customers in value streams.
So over in the leadership, leaders are starting to get much more complex. They're starting to go up into those higher levels of evolution where they can see more of what's going on, so they have more of a systems orientation. They're not going to force their way or their vision. They're going to start to become much more facilitative as leaders to elicit ideas from the organization and move to the best thing.
And culturally, we truly value empowered teams. That's what green is all about, is pushing empowerment down. That's a green idea. And our values in general, not necessarily business value, but our values in general, what we stand for, are going to become front and center.
Anyone curious about what this looks like in teal? Yeah? Well, first we have to take you back to orange. Sorry.
So
for comparison.
If you'll read these functions and how they traditionally show up, and you can do the adjustment to how that plays out.
Does that look somewhat familiar to most of you? This feels kind of like normal in your organization? Yeah. Okay.
So I referenced this book, Reinventing Organizations, before. So this is what Frederick Laloux found, and I want to emphasize that he was not studying organizations that were implementing Agile software development. They didn't know anything about it. Okay? So this is not a list that was created by an Agilist. This was a guy that was out doing research on cutting-edge organizations in the world and what they're doing. And one of the things they do is they have self-organized teams.
Where have I heard this before?
And they have coaches that don't have management authority.
Starting to sound really
So
familiar?
you see why that's the Agile ideal. We talk about that, and yet when it falls on orange ears, they go, that's stupid.
They go,
Somebody's got to have accountability for that.
Yeah, do that Agile thing. Fine, as long as it gives results. As soon as it doesn't give results, boy, they want to change it.
And in terms of projects, we don't need project managers. We self-staff projects. And we don't need HR to interview people for us. We'll do that ourselves.
Like, that'd be stupid. Why would HR interview people who we're going to have to live with?
They're on our team. Yeah, we're gonna suffer, live and die by them.
Right.
We don't really need job titles and all that kind of stuff. We can negotiate that. We don't need bosses to do our peer review or do performance reviews. We can do that.
Whoa, the cameras are coming up like crazy on this slide. Give me the last one. Woo!
Now, remember, this is cutting-edge organizations that probably you don't work in.
And did you see the bad news that less than 10% of people on the planet are here? Right? So the cool thing is that it feels to me like you all share with us the aspiration for this, which that's the first step toward moving toward it. That's the first step to take, is to start talking the values, and then eventually you walk the talk. Right?
So,
all right, so
one
let's
of my
look.
favorite sayings, sorry, I got to say this right now.
Go for
One
it.
of my favorite sayings is, if you can't change the people around you, change the people you are around.
Because the people you want to
This
work with are
conference-
all sitting in this auditorium.
That's right. This conference would be a good place as a startup incubator, just FYI.
Just saying.
All right.
So let's look at the 4 quadrants in a teal organization, just to give you more rubber meets the road.
Truly adaptive processes. We're going to have an adaptive organization structure that changes with market conditions, because we're not attached to a bureaucracy. We're going to actually be aware of our own ego needs. That'd be kind of strange in business.
Leaders will be working on their shadows, on the things that trigger them and have them go crazy. They won't go crazy in the organization. They'll go home at night and they'll work on their shadow and come in the morning a much better person. Imagine that.
Now, that's the organization of the future, and if you want that, you're going to have to create it, because you're probably not going to move to it in your organization. If you can be happy in your organization doing what you're doing, you should stay there and do it. And if you're not, you should quit whining and get with the people in this room.
Yeah. So here's our challenge to you. So this is a beautiful opportunity, having these models and what we've given you today, to use them as a new lens to look through with new eyes at everything you encounter in this conference, everything you encounter. You might be in a presentation and say to yourself, what altitude would this work at best, this idea I'm listening to? Or what quadrant does it prioritize? Where is it a good fit for something I'm trying to fix in a quadrant or help be more healthy? That's one challenge. The second is engaging cross-quadrant conversations.
So let's set that up. How many people think that they're primarily an I perspective kind of a person? That's what
they
you
look through that
normally
quadrant
look
first.
through.
You guys are going to have to turn around and look.
Raise your hands high.
Yeah. Turn around and look. Raise your hands high.
Alrighty.
So not many people.
How many people are it-oriented? The practices, objective, okay?
Oh, I'm curious about what the rest.
How many people are we-oriented? They look at team systems and the people side.
This is looking pretty even, folks. What about it's? It's. You think of systems.
There's one guy.
No, there are some people who are a little shy. They're doing this. They're doing this, right? Right. Modest, not shy. There you go. Well, hopefully, now here's what I know from drinking with y'all. You're not modest for long.
Nothing that a beer won't cure.
Right. So in smaller conversations over the next couple days, ask people, what's your primary quadrant that you look through, and share yours, and get people from all 4 quadrants to talk to each other, because you'll have a much richer conversation.
Remember, there's nothing, we like to say that everyone is right, but only partially.
We need each other.
So you need to figure out the wisdom from those other quadrants. My personal bias is we. That's what I tend to see naturally. So I need to engage, particularly it people, and to some extent its people, in how they view the world.
Now here's your extra credit homework. If you're doing those 2, one is to start floating trial balloons. So you guys know what a trial balloon is? Do you?
No.
Cool, let's tell you what a trial balloon is.
I don't know where the term came from. I don't know where the term came from. It's what you do in politics. Before you're going to appoint a minister, you put his name out there confidentially and let it leak out, and you find out if everybody freaks the hell out or if you can do it or not. Okay.
Right. So a
That's
trial balloon is like that. So if you're trying to see, will your organization or this particular leader, let's say, will they resonate with this idea you're wanting to bring in the organization? You might say something like, you know, what would it be like if peers evaluated one another instead of managers doing it? You just kind of float that out
And if they give you the evil eye, then you should stop, okay? Not a good idea.
Yeah.
And if they go, huh, that'd be kind of cool, well, then maybe you want to keep talking about that.
Yeah. So what we want for you is, as you go through the next 2 days, maybe somewhere in your notebook, be keeping a list of trial balloons you might want to give a go to when you get back to your organization, so you can see what's possible.
Let's see, the technique in this presentation was quadrant oriented and sort of a green altitude. Could I try it at work? And then what's the trial balloon I might float out?
Cool. So what do you think? Are you up for some of those? Yeah? Cool. All right. We want to thank you very much for your attention, for your love, for your energy this morning. We feel it. Thank you.
So we can entertain some questions.
Actually, let's let them applaud first. I hate that when we go, please applaud. We have just a couple moments for questions.
Folks, we've got some microphones. If you've got a question, please just raise your hand and wait for the microphone so everyone else can hear what you're asking. So who's got any questions?
I turned it off.
None? Go on, Chris.
Look at the graph.
It's a very simple question. What's the grass at the bottom supposed to represent?
I just realized it's coming through in this one, which I didn't realize. It's like a shadow.
I can't answer that legally in this country. Next question, but I can answer it over a beer.
He's originally from Colorado, right?
and now I live in Washington.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else have a question? Yeah, there's one right here. Go ahead and pass that down.
Right there. And then,
oh, okay.
Just a quick one. What's the most fun trial balloon that you've ever let go? Raised?
That's a good question.
You said fun, and that's the word that's tripping me up. Because I hardly ever feel like floating a trial balloon is fun. I feel a little bit nervous when I do it. I feel like, are they going to think I'm crazy? But I also say to myself, I can't live with myself unless I try. And so that's what floating a trial balloon feels like to me. It's like I have to get in line with my own integrity and say, what about this idea? What do you think? And then I have to watch and see which way their shoes are pointed.
Which one did you were most surprised by, I suppose?
You got one?
With the reaction, obviously.
No, well, this wasn't. It was a very long-term trial balloon. It was working in an organization that we were preaching the Agile values, and team performance was coming up, and performance reviews were coming up, and it was what in the U.S. they call a rank and yank method, which is put them in a normal distribution and lop off the bottom 10%, and people were really unhappy with having individual reviews after we'd been telling them that it was about team stuff and team accountability and everything. And so we worked with HR over a long period of time to create a more team-based performance management system, only to find out that when you actually talk to people, privately, the HR person found this out, people were really pretty uncomfortable with that idea. They actually weren't comfortable with giving, they had substantial bonuses, and they weren't comfortable with putting that in the hands of other people. And so there was a discrepancy between, that wasn't exactly a trial balloon, but that was a beginning of a trial balloon that then we followed its course out, and that was one of the big issues that really made this framework make sense to me. Like, why did that happen?
Why did that happen? They all said they wanted it, and then they didn't do it.
It was a very orange culture, and that's the way it was set up.
Yeah. Great.
And then
question over here. Go ahead.
Could you give us some examples of people or organizations who are operating at the teal level at this moment?
You and everyone else in the world wants to know that.
I certainly would refer you to the book Reinventing Organizations, but my favorite one is a healthcare organization in the Netherlands called Buurtzorg. It's about 10,000 people.
So a big organization.
All the health teams are completely self-organized. They make their own decisions. They hire their own people. They do everything themselves. They have their own profitability goals and so forth. And they have very, very little interference or anything from outside the team.
But in the corporate structures aid their ability to have their self-organized teams, not hinder it. And they came from a really, really strong amber orange kind of orientation where they had actually made everything very industrialized model, you know, like you have 2 minutes to give this shot, you have 5 minutes to wrap the brace around, you know, that sort of thing. And patient care went in the toilet, right? And so it was lucky that they actually were a values-driven organization at their core, and they said, what do we value? We value patient care. Let's reorganize around that.
Orange is a very poor meme to organize healthcare around.
Yeah.
Green is a much more appropriate one, just FYI. CD is doing a talk on, what is it called?
Radical organization structures.
Radical organization structures.
She's going to be painting you in teal in that talk. You're going to love it. You're going to walk out there feeling so good.
Kind of like teal finger. All right, we out of time?
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.